Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Stacey and this is my reading corner. Yes, I've changed the name very recently to Stacey's Reading Corner because I don't know, just fancied a change. But in this video I'm going to talk about the books that I've read so far this year in 2024 and just give you a little summary of what it's about and what I rated it. So the first book I read this year for the first half of the year, this is not in order, but this book is the first book I read this year, is The Last Witch of Scotland by Philip Paris. Now this is based on a true story set in 1727 where Ayla, can never pronounce any names right, and her mum have moved. They live in Scotland. They move house because their father's killed in their house fire, and Ayla is badly burnt. A new minister comes along and he's curious about Ayla and her mum, and he sort of drives them apart from the community. Some travelling entertainers arrive and they become friends with them. In the meantime, Ayla and her mum are arrested because there's suspicions that they are witches because they like to dabble in herbal medicines and things. So they're seen as witches and they're arrested. Now Ayla is saved from prison by the travelling entertainers, but unfortunately her mum's not, and she witnesses the execution of her mum. Ayla she flees Scotland to Ireland. The group then sort of breaks up because two of the members of the group, they die in the helping of getting Ayla free. The group then splits up and Ayla, she flees, I think, to Ireland. But anyway, I absolutely love this story. I love reading about witches, especially the especially the ones in England and the witch trials, because I just feel really sorry for them. They help people with herbal medicines and they get accused of being witches and executed. But yeah, it's a lovely read, as I said, based on a true story, and it's definitely five out of 5 stars from me, so that started my year off brilliantly. The next book is In a Company of Witches. So I've got them all spread out down here. This is a cute little, again, it's about witches because I love reading about witches. It's a cute bit of a mystery. Bryn and her aunts, they are the Warren witches and they own a B&B, and one day Constance, one of the guests, is found dead. They think it was by accident, but then Nora, Bryn's aunt, is questioned because they think there's a bit more to it. It's not an accident, it's a bit more to it than that. Now, Bryn is a witch that can speak to the dead. She hasn't spoke to the dead for a number of years since the death of her husband, but she now needs to get back into that, and she has to be able to clear her aunt's name by trying to communicate to Constance about her death. So yeah, I just found it cute and cozy, and if you like witches and a bit of a murder mystery, then this is definitely for you. And this was another, again, 5 out of 5 stars for me. The next book is The Familiars by Stacey Hawes. This is a story about a girl called Fleetwood. She's 17 years old. She is married and she's pregnant for the 4th time. She's lost the other children through miscarriage, and her husband is really anxious for an heir because he's a very rich person. She finds a letter that she shouldn't have found, basically stating that if she goes through this birth, then there is a chance that she could die. So of course she panics. She then crosses paths with a young midwife called Alice Gray, who is promised that she will look after her and make sure she doesn't die. But in fact, there's a little twist for it. The letter wasn't actually for Fleetwood, but I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, because I was like, oh. So yeah, but anyway, Alice is arrested because The method she uses again is like herbology. She's seen as a witch. She's arrested. So can Fleetwood get her out of prison before she's executed? Because Fleetwood needs her. They have a big bond together, and it's like, you know, can I get her out because I really need her because I don't want to die. But then it all becomes clear who that letter was for. But again, this is another 5-star read, 5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the characters. I love the friendship that blooms between Alice and Fleetwood. But yeah, it's just nice sort of, yeah, I love that. The next book I'm going to read is, I started Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Now I know this is a very, very popular book with a lot of people, but whether it's because I just wasn't in the mood for it or I was falling in a slump, I really couldn't get on with it. I didn't read much of it, and I couldn't get into it. But I'm going to admit, I did put this back on the shelf, and hopefully I will be in the mood to read it again another time, because I do keep trying 2 or 3 times if I DNF something. But I'm going to be honest in this vlog, I have tried reading this one. I couldn't get on with it. Maybe it wasn't the right time for me to pick it up, but you know, hopefully I will get to read it again at some point at the end of this year. But I just love the cover, and I do love reading about fairies, and it's a fantasy book, so you know, maybe I wasn't in that fantasy mood. The next book is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Now I've heard a lot about this, and I absolutely loved it. It is about Linus Baker. He leads a quiet life. He's in his 40s, and then he works at the Department of Charge of Magical Youth, and he's sent to this orphanage to monitor them. So he gets to know the children over, I think it's a month he's there. A month, maybe? A bit longer. And he falls... Is it Arthur? Yes, Arthur is the guardian of the children. He lives there. They all have these. It's a bit like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children vibes is what I got from this. But anyway, as he gets to assess the children and Arthur, he starts to fall in love with Arthur. And then he comes back home to deal with his life, and he's like, I don't want to do this. This life is boring. So he gives everything up, and he takes his cat, and he goes back and lives with Arthur and the children. And it's just a cute sort of gay romance in it. And 5 out of 5 stars. I fell in love with all the characters. I just thought it was so cute. But yeah, it's the first book I've read by T.J. Klune, and I don't think it would be the last book either. But yeah, it's a gay romance about Linus Baker, Arthur, and the children with magical use. And the next book I read was Holly by Stephen King. Now this follows Holly, who works for the Finders Keepers. Did you like Holly as well? Oh, you're funny. Come on down. You liked Holly. You like Stephen King as well. Yes, I know you do. Oh, you are funny. Stop. Come on, stop. Good girl. Yeah, Holly by Stephen King. It's Holly. I'm going to just go and feed it. Right, that's dog fed. The next book I want to talk about is Stephen King's Holly. Holly works at Finders Keepers agency, and one day she gets a message left from Sophie Dahl, who's inquiring if Holly can help her find her missing daughter. The only thing that was found was her bike and a note on her bike. I don't think the helmet was found. But as she is investigating the disappearance of this girl, she's also finding that there's connections with other children, other teenagers that have gone missing. I will say there's cannibalism in this, and I was like, wow, this is really good. I didn't think I would like it, but I did, and I definitely give this 5 stars as well. You know, I'm on a roll here. But yeah, it's got cannibalism. You find out where that the missing teens are going and what's happening to them. And yeah, you might have to have a bit of a strong stomach with some of the descriptions that are in this book, but in true Stephen King form. You know, if there wasn't writings like that in his books, then, you know, it wouldn't be a good book. But yeah, definitely a 5 out of 5 read for this. It does mention COVID a lot, and her putting on hand sanitizer and masks and stuff. So yeah, it's like a bit of a throwback to 4 years ago when we had to do that. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this one. Right, the next book that I'm going to talk about is Stephen King's It. A book I've wanted to read for a very, very long time. Dylan wants to read it, but I felt I needed to read it to see if it was age appropriate for him. No, it's not. He can wait another 2 years for it, because there is a scene in there at the near the very end that kind of don't want him to read about yet. But yeah, that's quite shocking. I really don't want to talk about that. But if you read it, you know. Page of 1,100 and something. Anyway, when they're coming out the tunnels to get out, if you know, you know. But if you don't know, read it and you'll find out. It follows the first kill, obviously, is It, who disguises himself as a clown called Pennywise, and his first kill is poor little, that we know of to begin with in the story, is little Georgie, where he gets his arm ripped off. Yeah, it's very graphic and gory, and I absolutely love it. But it follows the children, which is obviously Bill, who is Georgie's brother, and Bev, Eddie, Ben, Mike, Richie and Stan. Yes, I do get Stranger Things vibes from this book, which is great. And I've seen a TikTok about it and I can't unsee it. But it follows them, how they're terrorised by this It. He tries to kill them and they need to put a stop to it, and they hang about in the drains quite a lot, in the sewers, and they manage to, they think, kill it. Then as they all grow up, he disappears, the killings stop. They all grow up and go off on their own way. Mike stays behind in Derry, and then one day he has to make the call to say to them all, to say, you need to come back because the killings have started again and we need to finish this once and for all. So they have to come back and they have to remember, because they moved away, they forgot, they have to remember to go and completely destroy it. It's brilliant. It took me about a month to read because it is quite a lot. This issue is 1,166 pages long, but I literally did fly through it. I didn't think I'd finish it as quick as I did, but it's brilliant. Why on earth I didn't read it before now is beyond me, but if you love Stephen King, then obviously this is a very popular book. You may have seen the film. Give the book a try as well. But yeah, definitely in a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I'm going to talk about is Karen Slaughter's Last Breath. This is a very short story book. It's only about 133 pages long, so I read this in a day. I'll give it 4 out of 5 stars. But at the age of 13, Charlie Quinn, her childhood comes to an abrupt end where her mum and sister hold a grudge against her father, who's a solicitor, and kills them. Charlie grows up to become a solicitor, and Flora, this young girl, comes for her to help, but is everything all what they seem. Yeah, I was a bit fishy reading this, thinking I don't think Flora's all of what she's not the innocent party in this. She's not an honest student. She actually is in deeper trouble than Charlie first thought of. And she's quite a manipulative. I hated Flora as a character. She manipulates you. I can't say the word, manipulates you. She's just a horrible character, and I hated her. Because when her true colours are shown to Charlie, Charlie's just really angry. It's like, I'm not representing you, I'm not helping you anymore. You get yourself out of this mess. And she does, but she does it her way. And she's just really nasty to her grandparents who brought her up, trying to frame them to say they're taking all my money and that. But at the end of the day, I really, really enjoyed a little thriller. This is the second book I've read by Karen Slaughter, and I'll definitely be reading more of hers. But yeah, it's a quick read. If you're looking for a quick thriller, definitely recommend this one. Hi, the next book I'm going to talk about is Terry Pratchett's Guards. Excuse my washing machine, it is now on spin if you can hear that. This is the book I have most recently finished. This follows the Night Guards. Excuse me, I've got notes. The Night Guards. You've got Carrot, who's the young new recruit who's following everything by the rule book, wants to arrest everybody, not do the right thing. You've got Captain Vines, Colin and Nobby, and then you have Lady Ramkin, who lives in the dragon house with swamp dragons. She looks after those. And then you have Lupine Wansey, who in this book steals the How to Summon a Dragon book from the library. He does succeed in that, summons the dragon, which causes a bit of havoc over Aunt Mortpork, and luckily Errol, one of the swamp dragons, he is the hero who stops the dragon, and it sounds like that they actually go off and live happily ever after, which is quite really cute for two dragons. I love Lady Ramkin. Obviously I love dragons. She's like lives in a house full of swamp dragons, so she's amazing. I sensed a bit of chemistry between her and Captain Vines, but yeah, by the end they managed to stop Lupin once and get him arrested. But it's funny. I pulled faces on my vlog about this because they mentioned beef dripping sandwiches, so I had to look at the date, which was written in 1988, I believe. So yeah, that's why it mentions that, and I remember my grandparents doing that, and it's like yuck. But yeah, overall I really loved this one. This was a 5-star for me. I wasn't sure about going from, because I read them in series as the Witches series, Death series. They're the only ones I've read so far. So I was a bit nervous about going into the Night's Watch, but I'm glad I did. I now love the characters, and I already have a favourite one, Lady Ramkin. And Carrot is quite amusing as well, the way he's just like, I need to do everything by the rule book, and he carries it around with him. But yeah, 5 out of 5 stars, and more praise for Terry Pratchett. The next one I'm going to talk about, I've got notes on my phone, so because it was a while ago that I read this, is Lords and Ladies by Terry Pratchett. I read this at the beginning of the year after having it for Christmas. This follows Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Ogg and Margaret Garlick. They return after a recent adventure to crop circles because the elves have managed to get through into their, is it circle? It's now circle time. Of a parallel universe when the Discworld is of the elves. Elves are immoral creatures that enter the minds of animals and beings in a more destructive way than witches do. So basically they've got to stop these elves before they do damage. Then we've got Granny and Nanny. They discover that a group of girls, young girls live local, have started their own coven. I remember that they had to have to try and stop them. They do a public witchcraft contest with Granny Weatherwax, and I do not like these local girls because they're like all the, oh, how big I am, I'm better than you, and blah blah, and it's like, oh no, you know what, Granny Weatherwax is like the most amazing witch, you ain't gonna beat her or anything. But yeah, those local girls, they just really annoyed me in the story. Just glad they weren't in it for very long. So yeah, I absolutely love this fantasy. I'm just seeing if there's any more highlights that I wrote on here. But Margaret is obviously planning her wedding, and then Granny Weatherwax has her sense of her impending death as well. But yeah, again, another Terry Pratchett book that I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Sorry it's very short, you know, about the book, but if you love reading about witches and elves, this one is definitely for you because it's part of the Witches series. The next book I'm going to talk about is Terry Pratchett's Sorcery. There's a dying wizard who's made a rule against having children, makes a bargain with death He allowed his spirit to inhabitate his staff, which is passed on to his 8th son, who is born a sorcerer. He's under the influence of the staff, and he travels to Ankh-Morpork to indicate a plan for wizards to rule the Discworld with himself at the head, because the sorcerer's power is threatened to destroy the Discworld altogether. A small band, Rincewind the wizard, Nigel the destroyer, and Conina, the hairdresser, daughter of Cohen the barbarian, attempt to thwart those plans. So again, it's another fantasy novel by Terry Pratchett, another one I really liked. And it's got death in it as well. I do love when, you know, you have a character from another series hopping in. Death kind of hops in quite a lot of these Terry Pratchett books, obviously, to take them away. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I honestly don't remember much about the ending, and I don't know why. I think it's because I read it over Christmas, and obviously Christmas is a busy time, but I do remember that part, and I do remember it's the first Terry Pratchett book I've read with Rincewind in, and I thought he was a cool character as well. But yeah, Sorcery is definitely, I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars as well. And I did really enjoy it because I flew through it quite quickly. But as I said again, I can't remember much about the ending because, honestly, I read it over Christmas, and Christmas is a mad time anyway. And Cody was very poorly, so I was very tired. But yeah, that is. So I've read 3 Terry Pratchett books this year so far, and I am still loving it. The next one I'm going to talk about is on my Kindle, so there's a picture of the cover here. It is Ghost Bully. It follows this. The next book I'm going to talk about is on my Kindle, so I'll put a picture here because I don't have it anymore because I've just cleaned my Kindle out. It's Ghost Bully by Brian Corley. I quite enjoyed this book. It's about roommates. Jonah moves into his new house. The neighbours told him that, oh, you don't mind moving into a house where someone died, and he's like, no. But he's just happy to have his own house. But there is a ghost there who is haunting the house, and he basically tells them he wants them out or else I'm going to kill you. So he sends Max, his roommate, says, right, I'm going to move out for a bit, but leaving Jonah on his own. And that night Jonah is murdered by the ghost, and there's quite some detail in there of him dying, like he can see himself above, he's floating above, and it's just basically a story of where Jonah actually has a use as a ghost, where he helps other ghosts pass on because they're stuck haunting these houses. And him and the ghost bully, I can't remember the ghost bully's name, but they end up becoming sort of friends toward the end, and they end up living in their house together. But yeah, Jonah feels like I can talk these people into following the light, because a lot of them don't want to, they're frightened, they don't know whether they're going to meet up with like loved ones and stuff, and he goes around the town, manages to convince them to move on. So it was quite a cute short story that I found on my Kindle just randomly, and the synopsis sort of won me over, and I read it in a couple of days, so I really did like that. Just checking my list. The next book I read is a library book, so I don't have that anymore, it went back. It's this one. It's Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. It is the first book I read of Riley Sager. It's a thriller. It follows Jules, who's going to get a new job in a fancy apartment, just apartment sitting. The rules are no nights spent away, no visitors, and don't disturb the residents. But then as it just seems odd as you read it, and Jules is like, this is really odd. People start disappearing. Her friend Ingrid, she makes another friend who's also an apartment sitter called Ingrid, but one day she disappears, and she tries to find out why she disappeared, but then she realises Ingrid's not the first person to disappear while looking after these apartments, and then she starts to find out the truth about what these apartment sitters are for. They're actually killed and harvested for their body parts, because the residents that live there are very rich you know, like actors or doctors and stuff, and you know, if they need a new heart, they do it privately, and in the end, Jules ends up finding out there's like a hospital at the back of these apartments, and she knew something, you know, she was warned these apartments something wasn't right, and yes, they harvest things like livers and lungs and stuff, and to help them get better and live a longer and more fulfilled life. And it's like Jules needs to escape this and expose them, so it is a race against time to get out of this hospital before they, you know, sedate her again and start harvesting from her. But it's a brilliant thriller, and it had me gripped from the very beginning, and that's definitely in the five star for me. That is the first book I've read by Riley Sager, and I've got another one to read that I have got from the library, Survive the Night, at some point. So yeah, I look forward to reading that one as well. The last book I'm going to talk about is another library book, so I haven't got a physical copy anymore. It's The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval Britain by Brandon Sanderson. First Brandon Sanderson book I've read, but because it's got a bit of it's sci-fi and it's got a bit of time travelling, it's what interested me. It's about a man who awakens in the clearing of appears to be medieval England with no memory of who he is, where he came from, or why he's there. He was chased by a group from his own time. His sole hope for survival lies in regaining his missing memories, making allies amongst the locals, and perhaps even trusting in their superstitious boasts. He can only help from the real world should he have been given a guidebook entitled The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England, except his copy exploded when he was thrown back in time. So he manages to save some of the clues out of that handbook, but can he figure out in time how to survive there? Again, it's a book I wouldn't go for, but because it mentioned time travel, I quite like time travel, reading about time travel. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and that was another 5 out of 5 stars. I tried to read more sci-fi, but that's the only sci-fi book that I've actually read this year so far, and I actually enjoyed. So yeah, there are a lot of the books that I have read this year. There's too many, and I don't want to babble on anymore, but yeah, they're the ones I picked out that I thoroughly enjoyed. But I did throw in there the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies, because I just wanted to prove that I do DNF some books. But it just wasn't the right time for me to read that, and I hope too soon. But yeah, that's what I've read for this first half of the 6 months of this year. I cannot believe we are in June already, halfway through the year. So yeah, I hope any of those might prompt you to read them. If you do, or you have read them, let me know in the comments what you think below, and I will be back for another video very soon. Bye.